Alright guys, you're submitting applications, and in the requirements for those jobs, they say that you should have 3 years of experience or 10 years of experience. What do you do? How do you get that experience if you're just out of college or you're in college and about to graduate, and every single job you find wants you to have years of experience already, even when they say it's a junior developer or an entry-level position? I'll tell you about it right now, but make sure you subscribe first. Now, jumping in, we see this all the time. We check out job posts on LinkedIn or on Indeed, or we go to a company's website and we look at these jobs they have open. And they say they're entry level or a junior developer job or a mid-level job, but they require you to have 5 years of experience, 10 years of experience, or sometimes it's an entry-level job and they just want 1 or 2 years of experience, but it's entry level. How do you have 2 years or a year or 3 years? How do you have professional experience if you just graduated and it's an entry-level position? It's ridiculous. It really is. It's almost asinine for them to put it in the job requisition, but they do. So for those of you that are having trouble finding jobs, that are putting out applications, you're not getting a response, and you think it's because of your lack of experience just out of college, you know, it's tough. I'm sorry to say that. It is really hard to get those jobs, but you know, there are things you can do to beef up your resume and to make yourself look more attractive to the recruiters that are hiring for those positions. And what you can do is you can work on projects on the side. You can work on what people call hobby projects or learning projects or tutorial projects. And the way you do that is you find something related to that role that you're interested in. And this is also a great way to learn if you're going to really enjoy that type of job or that maybe tech stack. And then you begin implementing something for it. So a good example of that would be, say you're interested coming out of college and being a game developer. And you want to work for maybe a small company, indies or something like that, that are working in Unity 3D. If you don't have Unity 3D experience already, you're not a great C# developer because you just came out of a computer science program or a boot camp where you learned web development or you learned JavaScript or you learned C++, not C# or Java instead of C#. Then you should work on some hobby projects. See if you really like C#. See if you can jump into Unity. And of course, we get lost in this whole mindset. How do you just pick a hobby project to work on? Well, you just find something that you're interested in. For example, in game development, remake Pac-Man, or make a little 2D platformer, or if you play tower defense games, try to make one. A tower defense game is really complex if you actually look at the nitty-gritty mechanics, with having objects that need to be able to keep track of their damage, output, their hit points, levels, if you have different tiers of a tower or a defensive structure, your enemies that come in waves, you need to consider the multiple types of hit points they have, if they do damage to towers, if they can attack, if they're flying, if they're land, if they're water-based characters, etc. So as a hobby project, just by trying to implement it, you're going to learn so many things. You're going to learn how classes work within games. You're going to learn how the update loops work, how the rendering works, and you're going to learn a ton from this. And the key to it is find a project that you want to do. If you're going to replicate Pac-Man, if you're going to replicate Tetris, and then begin working on that project. Add some notes to your portfolio as you're going. Put your source code on a Git repository that people can see. Make that public. There's no reason to hide a hobby project. Don't be embarrassed. Companies are going to see that you're working on stuff actively, and that's going to be really cool to them because they get tons of applications all the time, and a lot of them don't show a lot of professional or any sort of written code experience. So put your stuff in a Git repository, show screenshots on your portfolio website, or share links to those things in your resume. Don't put the pictures in your resume. Don't put source code in your resume as an attachment. Just put some links to your Git repository. If you're using a Git repository, you're probably using GitHub. If you don't use GitHub, check out GitLab. I think Bitbucket gives you free repos as a student or just in general for free. So those are great ways to do it. If you're in web development, make your own website. if you have not made your own website and you want to go into web development, that's kind of a rough one. Of course, people are going to hear this and going to say, Isa, in web development, that can be web services, that can be web applications. It could be something where we're not just developing a front-end website with a back-end. It could just be completely back-end development where we're writing APIs that connect to databases and we're serving data to a front end. Well, if those are the types of back-end work you want to do or the types of web dev you want to do, then implement them. Maybe look at implementing a database from scratch, install it on a server, whether it's a MySQL database, a Mongo, a Postgres, whichever one it is. Implement it yourself and write some notes and show people that you've done it. Then write some APIs, some CRUD, right? So if you're going to be writing a database, you probably need to implement CRUD, C-R-U-D, to allow people to create and update and delete keys, etc., right? So that's key stuff you need to implement. Then write an API. If somebody has an application, you don't want them to be modifying the database directly, so give them an API to expose data to them and allow them to pull when they need. Now, if you don't want to work on front end at all, just create that, put it on your Git repository. It's going to help a ton, especially if you're working in the modern stacks that the company you're interested in is using or the modern languages. Everyone nowadays is using either JavaScript, PHP, or Python. Ruby is still around, Ruby on Rails, and it's still pretty much thriving to an extent. A lot of people love it, but I'd say it's not up there with JavaScript, PHP, and Python. Those are really your big languages right now. So implement. Now, if you're going into software, if you're going to be doing the nitty-gritty desktop software development, or you want to go work at a DoD firm, or you want to work in graphics, check out C++ and work on some projects. If you're going to be working with graphics, download OpenGL, get the libraries installed, and just set up a project. You're going to learn a ton just trying to configure it. If you want to improve and show some real technical kind of savviness or prowess, and you want to begin working on open source contributions, then look on GitHub for projects that are open sourced that you can contribute on. Check out any language or any framework, and if it's interesting to you, go ahead and clone the repo and look to see if there's any problems that they're looking to solve that are low-hanging fruit that you can become introduced to. If you have a few open source contributions that you can show in your resume, then that's a huge deal to some companies, and that's going to really step up your game. So we just went over a bunch right there. So the key points to take away are, if you're having trouble or if you're finding it hard to get your resume looked at and you're really intimidated by this requirement from almost all companies that you have to have years of experience, first of all, don't worry about that. Ignore their age requirement or their years experience requirement. Of course, if you apply for a principal role, which is pretty experienced, that's a pretty high-level experienced role, or a senior level and you're an entry-level person, you're probably not going to qualify. But if you're entry-level, you should definitely be applying for entry-level and above positions without worrying about the years of experience. Let them vet that information. Let them look at your resume and say, hey, this is not enough experience for us. Don't worry about it. Just submit your application. You should be applying as an entry-level software developer to entry-level jobs, junior-level jobs, and just normal software developer, web developer, game developer roles. When I say regular, I mean they do not have a prefix like junior or associate or entry-level. Don't worry about those. I actually recommend against even considering those, because all that means is that the company's going to pay you less. They're probably not going to be competitive. Every company I've seen that hires somebody that's entry-level as a junior or an entry-level person pays you absolute garbage, okay? They're just using that title to pay you less than everyone else who, if you go to a competing company that hires entry-level people at a normal role without a junior or associate or entry-level title, they're probably going to pay more. And, you know, a lot of people can argue that. Go for it. I understand the arguments for having that title there, but I don't understand the pay difference when it comes to finding a competitive pay for entry-level developers. So titles really don't mean much to me unless your organization requires it, but generally, if you're on a small enough team and an organization that structures the teams and everything correctly and the way choices are made, then you should be fine. Let me make sure this thing does not go to sleep. All right. So lastly, apply to the jobs. Okay, if you need to work on your hobby projects, I told you, find a hobby project, find a language in the stack that you're interested in, or the stack that's primarily focused on by the company you want to go and apply to, and then just make something. If you can't choose what to make, replicate something. Okay, that's how we learn. We recreate other objects or other classes or other projects people have done, and you learn a ton from doing that. All right, if you're lost, go ahead and feel free to leave us a message down below. We'll help you find a project to figure out or to try and implement. And if you need guidance past that, there's tons of resources. Check out Stack Overflow, check out Quora, add comments here in the links in the comments below. Check out our website, Journey to Programming. If you have any questions, you can also request topics there. And there's a request a topic button. Again, check out our other videos and subscribe. Have a good one, you guys.